The phone number was 76073399969. If you dialed it in the summer of 1999, it would ring at the intersection of two dirt roads in the Mojave Desert, 12 miles from the nearest pavement, surrounded by nothing but Joshua trees and a silence so complete you could hear your own blood moving, and yet somebody would pick up. A stranger, sitting in the desert heat next to a battered phone booth riddled with bullet holes, would answer your call, and for a few minutes, two people who had no reason to ever speak would have a conversation. This is the story of how the loneliest telephone in America became one of the most called numbers in the country, and how that attention destroyed it. The phone wasn't always famous. For most of its life, it was the opposite. In 1948, a man named Emerson Ray, who owned the Cima Cinder Mine out in the eastern Mojave, petitioned the state of California to install a telephone in the desert. His miners needed a way to call home. The terrain around the mine was volcanic, cinder cones, lava flows, a landscape that looked more like Mars than Southern California. The nearest town was Baker, an hour's drive over unpaved roads. California, under a mandate to serve residents of isolated areas, erected what they called the Cinder Peak Policy Station, a hand-cranked magnetophone on a pole, wired into a line that ran from Highway 91 to Route 66 through the desert. One phone in the middle of nowhere for a handful of people. That was its entire purpose. Over the decades, the phone evolved. The hand crank became a rotary payphone in the 1960s, then a touch tone in the 1970s. A proper booth was built around it, one of those glass and metal enclosures you used to see on city sidewalks, except this one stood at a desert crossroads where the only traffic was the occasional mining truck. The glass got shot out. The light above the phone died, but the line stayed live. Then the mine wound down. The settlement at Cima emptied and became a ghost town. In 1994, Congress passed the California Desert Protection Act, and the land around the booth became the Mojave National Preserve, federal land managed by the Park Service. The miners were mostly gone. A woman named Lorene still managed what remained of the cinder operation, and because she had no phone at home, she'd drive out to the booth to make her calls. Nobody called in. The phone almost never rang. If it did, the sound went out into the desert and died among the Joshua trees, heard by nothing but coyotes. That was the state of things on May 26, 1997, when a man named Godfrey Daniels, who went by Doc, attended a concert by the punk band Girl Trouble and picked up a copy of their zine, Wig Out. In the letters section, someone identified only as Mr. N from California described spotting a small dot with the word telephone beside it on a map of the Mojave, 15 miles from the main interstate. Curious, he'd driven out in his Jeep and found the booth, still working. He wrote down the number and published it for anyone who might want to call. The idea seized Daniels completely. He was an early internet adopter, a Burning Man regular, a collector of oddities, the kind of person for whom a strange idea became an obsession. That night he dialed the number. It rang and rang. Nobody answered. Of course not. Who would be standing next to a phone in the Mojave at that hour? But the ringing was the thing. He was listening to a sound propagating across hundreds of miles of empty desert, a bell crying out where no one could hear it. He called again the next day, and the day after. He began calling multiple times a day, once an hour when he was supposed to be working. He put a sticky note on his bathroom mirror. "Have you called the Mojave Desert today?" On June 20th, less than a month in, Daniels dialed the number and got a busy signal. Someone was using the phone. He redialed frantically, hung up, redialed, terrified that whoever was out there would leave before he could catch them. The line rang 4 or 5 times, and then a voice said hello. Her name was Lorene. She worked at the cinder mine. She didn't have a phone at home, so she drove out to the booth to make her calls. She told Daniels she'd never heard the phone ring before, not once in all the years she'd been using it. They chatted for a few minutes, and when he hung up, Daniels realized he'd forgotten to ask the one question that mattered most. Where exactly was the phone booth? That forgetting drove everything after. If he'd simply gotten directions, he might have visited once and moved on. Instead, the mystery deepened. He spent weeks researching, calling the phone company, studying old maps, until he tracked down an approximate location. On August 27th, on his way to Burning Man, Daniels and a friend drove a van into the desert as lightning storms gathered on every horizon. They followed the dirt tracks past danger signs and abandoned mine equipment deeper into increasingly hostile terrain. The sun went down. They were losing hope when Daniels spotted a line of telephone poles in the headlights, barely visible, running off into the dark toward nothing. They followed the poles. And there it was, a standard metropolitan phone booth at a dirt crossroads, looking exactly as absurd and wonderful as he'd imagined. Glass mostly gone, frame pocked with bullet holes. But the phone worked. Daniels stepped inside, lightning cracking across the desert behind him, and called a friend. Here is where the story pivots, and it pivots because of timing. The year was 1997. The internet was young enough to feel like a frontier, but powerful enough to spread a story across the world. When Daniels got home, he built a website, the Mojave Phone Booth Project, and posted the phone number, GPS coordinates, photographs, and an open invitation for anyone to call or visit. The idea was irresistible. In an era when most people still used landlines, the existence of a working payphone in the middle of an empty desert felt like a glitch in reality. You could sit at your desk in London and dial a number and make a phone ring in a place where no human being had any business being. People started calling, first a trickle, then a flood. Calls came from across America, the UK, Germany, Australia, Southeast Asia. Strangers who happened to be at the booth would answer the phone and find themselves talking to someone on the other side of the planet. Random, unpredictable, strangely intimate conversations between people who would never speak again. In May of 1998, the New York Times ran a piece headlined, "If a Payphone Rings, Who Will Answer?" That pushed the story from internet curiosity to mainstream phenomenon. By that summer, when Daniels returned to the booth, the phone that had sat silent for 50 years was ringing constantly. His group answered 72 calls in a single day. Then people started coming in person. They drove from Los Angeles and Las Vegas and Phoenix, hours on the interstate, then miles on dirt roads, to be there when the phone rang. They camped among the Joshua trees. They left graffiti on the booth's frame, taped photographs and rosaries and license plates to its walls. The booth became a shrine. In the summer of 1999, at the peak of the frenzy, a 51-year-old Texan named Rick Carr arrived and announced that the Holy Spirit had instructed him to answer calls. He pitched a tent and stayed 32 days. He answered more than 500 calls, including repeated ones from someone who identified himself only as Sergeant Zeno from the Pentagon. When a Los Angeles Times reporter drove out and found Carr there, living beside the phone in 100-degree heat, the article pushed the phenomenon further still. Art Bell mentioned the booth on Coast to Coast AM. The phone number became something people passed around like a secret. And this is where the story turns, because everything that made the booth magical was also what killed it. The Mojave National Preserve was only 5 years old. The Park Service's mission was to protect a fragile desert ecosystem, a place where a single tire track across the desert floor remains visible for decades, where the cryptobiotic soil crust that takes years to form can be destroyed in seconds by a boot. Thousands of visitors began arriving each year. They drove off established roads, creating new tracks. They left food wrappers and beer cans. They camped without permits. The booth, once invisible, had become a liability in a protected landscape. There was no announcement, no ceremony. In May of 2000, one of the last calls the booth received was answered by Lorraine's brother. He chatted with a man in England, then hung up and went to work at the mine. When he came by the next day, the booth was gone. Pacific Bell had sent a crew on May 17th. They dismantled the structure, removed the telephone and its pedestal, hauled everything away. They left a concrete slab. The phone was destroyed. The number was retired. After more than 50 years of service, first to miners, then to a woman making her calls, then to the entire world, the line went dead. But the idea turned out to be harder to remove than the booth itself. People kept coming. They found the concrete slab and treated it like a grave. Someone built an actual tombstone for the phone booth. The Park Service removed it. Fans erected a plaque. The Park Service removed that too. Eventually, they broke up the concrete slab and hauled it away, erasing the last physical trace. Even that didn't stop the pilgrimages. The paradox is this. The phone was installed because the desert was empty and people were isolated. It existed because of loneliness. When it became famous, it attracted exactly the kind of attention the desert could not sustain. The connection destroyed the conditions that had made the connection feel extraordinary. If the booth had remained unknown, it would still be standing. In 2013, a phone enthusiast named Jared Morgan acquired the original number and set it up as a conference line. Dial the number, you're connected to an open call where strangers talk. A ghost of the original booth. Same number, same premise, but no dirt road, no Joshua trees, no wind, no silence before the ringing starts. Drive out to the spot today and there's nothing. The telephone lines have been taken down. The mine is abandoned. The slab is gone. The plaque is gone. The tombstone is gone. Only the Joshua trees remain, standing in a silence that hasn't been broken by a ringing phone in more than a quarter of a century. The number, though, you can still dial it, 760-733-9969. Someone might pick up.